In this video today, we are going to learn about wet on wet technique and also dry on wet technique for watercolor. So let's get into it! Here are the material that we are gonna be using today. First is the watercolor. Over here that I'm showing you, there are two types of watercolor. The first one is a pen or cakes, and then the other one is tube. If you are using tube, then you will need a palette with you. Here are the watercolor paper. The brand that I'm using is Canson. This is a 300-gram watercolor paper. I will go through what's the difference between watercolor paper and normal paper in the video as well. And some brushes. Over here I'm using a round tip brush and water and cup, paper towel to clean up. So that's the material for today. Before we start painting, I'm going to explain to you the difference between the watercolor paper and normal paper. So as you can see here, the watercolor paper is thicker. You could see the pattern, right? This is the surface that we're gonna work with. So if you flip, there will be no pattern, no texture. And then this is the one that we will work with. You can see, right? But in normal paper, it's all smooth and thin. Now I'm just going to use colored water so you could see the difference better. Let's start with the normal paper. So once I dab the color, and then normally if I stroke it a little bit hard, just a little bit, the paper will start to come out. Do you see on my brush? If I mix green with it, it doesn't really have that nice effect, and then the paper will keep on peeling till eventually, let's see what happens if I rub long enough, then it will start making a hole soon, and we don't want that. Definitely we don't want a hollow artwork, right? Except that is the effect that you are looking for, but I believe this time this is not what we're looking for. So this is what happened when you put too much water on normal paper. Now if we use watercolor, even I could show you if you pour the water, and then spread it out. Just let it blend by itself, and then we will let it dry. You see, you could literally move the water and the paper is still very durable. Where else the other paper not so durable. So remember to use watercolor paper when you paint. The first technique I'm going to show you is called wet on wet. So what it means is we are going to wet the paper first with water. Just dip your brush into the water. The paper will absorb the water, and then when it's wet enough, we will color it later on. So I'm already spreading all the water. I'm gonna be using red here. So with your clean brush and water, just dip it into the paint and you can start painting. As you can see, even when you just dab the brush into the paper, because the paper is already wet, it will actually spread the color by itself. And this is the magic of watercolor. through this way, you can actually make a very beautiful pattern. So here I'm still using red. Once I'm done with red, I'm gonna clean my brush, and then just to make sure there's no more color remain, I'm gonna do the same thing and let it blend, and it will create a very beautiful pattern. You can mix it with the previous color as well. As you can see here, I'm using yellow and red as the primary color, and it creates a beautiful orange as the secondary color. I didn't use enough water, so it doesn't blend as well as the one here. So now I'm just going to go back to red, put a bit more water, and then try to blend it a little bit more. You need to experiment between the consistency of the water and the paint to get the effect that you're looking for. And while you're painting with watercolor, you also need to pay attention on the time, because once it dries, you can still mix it actually with adding water on top of it, like what I'm doing now. But sometimes the effect won't be as good as when you blend it for the first time. So here I just adding more water and let it flow and create a beautiful pattern by itself naturally. Consider the color will actually be lighter once it dries, because as you can see, we add so much water in it just now. Over here, if you don't put much water, what will happen is you will have the clear stroke. If that's what you're looking for, then it's fine. You can compare with the other one here where I put more water, it blends nicely. So if you want to blend it, you just use water and try to stroke it slowly, gentle. Let it blend. So when you're working with watercolor, you literally need to go with the flow, as if you're dancing, slowly, gently, and let the magic work. Okay, I think this is enough for me. I just put a bit of red here. So I'm using pen or cake. So once you are done, sometimes there's like remaining other, like if I accidentally mix the color, what you can do to clean it, just wipe the pad or the cake. We're going to use the tube watercolor. For tube watercolor, you just put it a little bit. A little bit is enough. And then after that, you can dilute it with water. Oops. This is what happened when you don't really clean your brush and your water already mixed color. So while you're using watercolor, you need to pay attention on your brush, the cleanliness of your brush and your water, because watercolor is quite pigmented in a sense. So if your brush is heavily pigmented with other color, it will easily mix like this. And then if it's already mixed, like what I did just now, what you can do, you can just dab it with paper towel. This is the fun with watercolor. It's very easy manipulated in a sense. So earlier we are using wet on wet technique. Now we are gonna use dry on wet. So the difference is just the state of paper. So here the paper is completely dry. Remember earlier we tried to wet the paper first. Now the paper is completely dry, and then we will dab it with some color. So see the first difference, it didn't spread by itself at all. The paper is completely dry, so it absorbs the water right away. And I will show you a very cool technique. See here, it's all yellow, right? It's a solid wash. And then we want to make this yellow color to gradually getting lighter. What you are gonna do here is just adding more water. Till it has the effect or the wash that you want. I will mix it with a little bit of blue. This is the interesting fact about the tube watercolor. So if you couldn't finish it all, don't throw it away. You can actually keep it, like what I did here. This is actually dry, so I just leave it there, and then I could reuse it in the future. And if you want to mix both of this color together, use water and then try to mix it in between the line. Oh, I don't like the color that's spread here. Easy. Use the paper towel. Dab it slowly. Let the water absorb. If some part is too dark, just add a bit more water to spread it out. And then sometimes you just need to wait for the water to spread by itself to reveal the real pattern that the water will create. Sometimes you just need to wait and see. Here is the result after it's completely dry. This is the one that is using wet on wet technique, where we blend red and yellow together. And then this is the one that is using dry on wet technique. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial today and you get to explore more about watercolor. See you next time. Bye.